my opinions. We all have prejudices. We have to acknowledge them, get rid of them, but then they're all automatically replaced by other ones. So let's play chess with our prejudices. We all have the evil in us. We all have the evil in us. And when a society is that desperate that a man comes along like the Führer and raises the hopes and all that, people are sucked in. Adolf Hitler should lead us. Where does he lead you? Along the road where there's little flowers blooming. Am Wege hoch. And we can learn a lot from the powers of evil, because I think the powers of evil are more clever than the other powers. So we have to use whatever the evil has given us and turn it around. This is part 2 of military tactics, to reverse the situation, to reverse it within yourself. So ein Regiment von Hitler, durch ein kleines Städtchen ein. Every artist is using his life experiences. If you've seen the war, you're influenced by the war. If you've been influenced by a regime, you're influenced by a regime. My own graphic work is marked by this time. I learned how to do things short, fast, in an organized way. I don't have something to say. It hits, just like a fist, like a simplified argument.
The total war. Behind the coulisses.
What is this?
By Rosenberg,
Oh, yeah,
The Shape of the Jew. Oh, that's even more fascinating.
Wait a minute.
A manual of the Jewish question, Handbuch der Judenfrage. A manual is something which is supposed to make life easier for the Jew hater. This reminds me of that amusing story about anti-Semitism. An anti-Semite supposedly should be somebody who hates Jews more than absolutely necessary. This goes even a step further, because it allows the ordinary man in Germany, elsewhere, throughout occupied Europe, how to deal actually in an easy, simple way about the so-called Jewish question. Strasbourg and this area is a victim place. And within the victim place, Jews and my family are one of the basic elements of this. I was born as Francis Rosenstiel here in Strasbourg in 1936, and I'm a lawyer and an international civil servant. With my grandparents and my parents, we fled Strasbourg. And then in 1946, I came back to a place which didn't mean anything to me, which was coming back as a survivor to nowhere. For people like us, like the Jews, when we came back, we, and I certainly suffered, a real trauma. At no moment had I the feeling that Jewish survivors were welcome. Not only our presence, but maybe more our return was somehow disquieting for easygoing habits. And I resented the fact that people used to say when something was going in a disorderly way, oh, you see, this would not have happened during the German time. At least there was a kind of order. And as I used to reply, this order was the order of the graveyard. It was an order of the cemetery, it was an order for the dead. Totalitarianism is a kind of life belt for mediocrity. The mediocre doesn't need big intellectual books. The mediocre needs such a manual in the one hand and a sharp knife or a bottle of poison in the other hand. In between there is nothing. There is no brain, there is no conscience between the handbook, the manual and the knife. But at the same time what is disquieting is that all this is extremely banal.
Yes, but it's well presented.
Banal
that's the
meaning,
whole point of the media. It's a banal.
Banal meaning repetitive.
Yes, but that's why we are in the mediocrity, because it's banal. Everybody can identify himself with it.
Yes, and every country could.
Everyone in every country, everybody can identify. He says, "This can be me. This can be me." Yes. Even here, Goethe and Schiller, this can be me at this point.
A majority of Germans even said, "This is me."
This is me.
You see, as an Alsatian, I'm pretty disquieted by the presence of the Strasbourg
Look at this,
cathedral.
right there. In the middle of all the propaganda, the Cathedral of Strasbourg.
Well, the title of this book is the use of the Führer Adolf Hitler. Shortly after the occupation by the Nazis, Hitler came and visited the Strasbourg. Is it a coincidence that Hitler wanted to make as a priority a visit to this symbolic cathedral? Because this very cathedral carries those famous sculptures. The most controversial face-à-face opposition between one sculpture of the blind synagogue carrying a broken lance and of the enlightened Catholic Church. And as we all know throughout history, one of the many bases of anti-Semitism have been a perverse teaching of what happened 2,000 years ago. The Nazis appropriated the teaching of the church. How can you imagine German armies carrying buttons on their belts saying, "God with us"?
Gott mit uns, everywhere,
Gott
on every
mit
belt.
uns. How can you hijack Christianity for dictatorial purposes? Nazism promised paradise on earth. The Führer said, "Ich verspreche Ihnen 1000 Jahre nationalsozialistische Kultur." I promise you 1000 years of National Socialist culture. This is not heavenly paradise. This is earthly paradise with living accountants.
Yes, which is very costly. Will Gänse rauschen durch die Nacht, mit wildem Geschrei nach Norden. Will Städte Fahrt, Habart, Habart, die Welt ist voller Morden. Will Gänse rauschen, die Welt ist voller Morden, the world is full of murderers. We're going to the Struthof, which is an extermination camp. There might have been some Jews here, but the Jews were redirected to Auschwitz. And during the war, we knew about it. And the convoys that brought the people here were called Nacht und Nebel, night and fog. And then after the war, Truthof was made into a museum, you know, with all the pajamas and all that, and that was set on fire by some neo-Nazis. Nobody knows where they came from.
Today there are what is called revisionism. There are people who say all this is not true. What are you talking about? 6 million Jews, there are only 5 million and a half.
Could you mention one historian in this world who didn't have an opinion? It's a problem with historians.
But
it's a breed.
What I'm saying is that our topic, the fascination of fascism, has an additional topicality than a merely sociological or historical one.
Absolutely.
We are talking about today and tomorrow, not about yesterday. And we are not talking for the dead, for the victims. We're talking for our own children and for our grandchildren to come. In Hebrew, the roots of the word violence and the roots of the word silence are exactly the same. This is why one may consider that the worst kind of violence is the violence of silence, and our common scope is to break such a violence.
I come regularly here. I think every class, every child should be taken here as a reminder. So this is called zone de silence. That means it's a zone of silence. I'm sorry. See, all the buildings are not here anymore. I mean, it's just a terracing and yes, it's nice. Yes, it's nice. Sorry, this makes me sick. Makes me sick.
No image taken during the Third Reich can deserve the word beautiful, which means that not even Mona Lisa, even Beethoven music, thrown into the environment of a totalitarian system, be it in a mere concert, can be taken as works of art by any survivors of what has happened during this period. And I'm always particularly shocked and moved when I listen to concerts recorded in Berlin during the Second World War. Even concerts performing my favorite works, be it the last movement of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, which sounds particularly surrealistic in that background. What shocks me in that? There you see these people, very elegantly uniformed SS or Nazi high officials, with beautiful blonde girls and magnificent ladies, wives or mistresses, sitting next to them, coughing and putting their hand in front of themselves and knowing that it's not decent, not done, and not pleasant for your neighbors to cough when you are in a concert hall and you have to cough very quietly. And a couple of miles away, hundreds and thousands of people, children, naked, starving, are dying and being burnt because even corpses as a witness are not bearable for this musical audience. This mixture between horror and decency with music and aesthetics as a kind of hostage is, to my belief, one of the most shocking paradoxes of the second part of the 20th century. objects bear witness, but objects without life, without anybody to talk about them, to shed really the objective eye on the object, they end up in a museum without anybody interested in visiting it. And it is the combination between the object and life, between the guardian of the invisible museum and the apparently innocuous museum piece. This combination is what actually bears witness in my opinion. And this is why we are talking, because this is the ultimate chance, surviving and talking.
Yeah, but you have to pay the price for surviving.
Indeed, yes. So what is the price? With your
conscience and with your lack of conscience.
What is the price you have paid for that?
Anyway, restlessness, anger especially. But I'm basically an existentialist, a philosophy of despair. And the more there is despair, the more you keep on fighting. Don't hope, cope. I have no hope.
Don't hope, cope is not a formula of despair. It's the ethics of responsibility, and this is what is about your coping.
But we have to live with whatever we have. We have to live with it. I say always, if I didn't have a conscience, I'd be a free man.
Somewhere the roads, two roads of people like you and me, end up on the same track.
Yes.
They do not remain as parallels which never encounter.
If we had the ocean here, we would say we would share the same horizon line.